Welcome to Motive eMoC, the digital management of change module within the Motive compliance system featuring integrated AI support. This overview follows the complete change lifecycle, from initial screening and risk assessment through to implementation, commissioning, handover, and closeout. Change can improve how an organization works, but even a small modification can introduce new risk. In this video, you'll see how Motive's management of change platform keeps that risk visible, controlled, and verified. Management of change works as a controlled lifecycle. It starts with screening and defining the change, then moves through risk review, design, implementation, commissioning, handover, and final acceptance. Instead of scattering that work across separate files, one connected record keeps the change, its risks, follow-up actions, evidence, and approvals visible all the way through. That means you can see what's complete, what's still outstanding, who owns each task, and whether the change is ready to move to the next stage. The first call is simple but important. Does this activity actually need management of change control, or is it work that can follow another established route? That's why screening separates routine maintenance, replacement in kind, and non-standard change right at the start, so genuine changes aren't mistaken for business as usual. Replacement in kind only applies when the replacement stays inside the approved specification and does not weaken safety, operation, reliability, maintenance, inspection, or compliance. That means checking the details that matter in service, like size, duty, materials, pressure and temperature rating, performance, connections, control functions, certification, and how the item will be maintained. Even if a manufacturer part has been superseded, it only counts as like for like when a competent review confirms it is genuinely equivalent for the job you need it to do. The AI then walks the user through the comparison points that can disqualify a replacement from being treated as replacement in kind or RIK, including duty, materials, hazardous area certification, software function, and any spare parts impact. From there, the AI offers a recommendation, not an approval. The competent person makes the final call, records the decision, and keeps the basis of comparison traceable in the record. The request should begin with the problem you're trying to solve, not a fix that's already been chosen, because the record needs to test options before the organization commits to one. From there, the record captures the current condition, why the change is needed, the expected outcome, how success will be measured, which assets are affected, whether the change is temporary or permanent, the cost, the timescale, and the evidence that supports it. AI can assemble a first-pass hazard picture that maps likely causes and consequences, notes existing safeguards, suggests initial risk ratings, proposes extra controls, flags likely actions, and identifies which disciplines should be in the review. But that draft is only the starting line. The change owner and competent assessors still check every point, then confirm it, correct it, expand it, or remove it altogether. So even when AI helps the work move faster, accountability stays with people, because the risk assessment and every decision that follows still belong to the people making and approving the change. At this point, Part 0 is confirming that the change is worth pursuing, clearly described, and important enough to support operational priorities before more assessment work begins. Once that is clear, the organization names the change owner, confirms the right assessment route, and decides whether the request should be approved, sent back for more work, deferred, or rejected. Part 1 is where the proposed solution is properly challenged before anything is implemented. So the organization tests the idea while it can still be improved, redirected, or stopped. That review looks across the full picture, including the plant, the process, the people doing the work, the environment, the product, the maintenance strategy, and the wider organization around the change. So the AI draft is only one input. The technical assessment still belongs to the team, and it has to be backed by evidence, discipline expertise, and sound engineering judgment. The change owner brings in the disciplines the change actually touches, whether that means process, mechanical, electrical, control and instrumentation, operations, maintenance, inspection, safety, environment, quality, projects, or IT. Then the review tests the connections between them, looking at interfaces, linked systems, past incidents, and other live changes. So the team assesses the real impact instead of judging each part in isolation. Standard assessment criteria give every discipline the same review framework, so process, mechanical, electrical, and control specialists are judging change with a consistent method rather than different personal standards. Those prompts steer the review through the practical details that matter, like operating limits, containment, hazardous areas, alarms, trips, interlocks, software, functional safety, testing, commissioning, and handover. At the end, each assessor records the outcome, the evidence behind it, and whether any action still needs to be raised, so the decision is clear, justified, and ready to follow through. The framework is configurable, so each organization can shape the assessment around its own hazards, asset base, and engineering or regulatory standards instead of forcing every site through one generic review. That means company engineering standards, lessons from incidents, insurer requirements, and internal assurance questions can all be built straight into the review, so the prompts reflect how your business actually controls change. AI can also propose extra checks that fit the change itself, like hydraulic duty, motor load, foundation loading, pipe stress, vibration, relief capacity, or cybersecurity. The team stays in control of every suggestion. They can accept it, edit it, reject it, or turn it into a formal review criterion or follow-up action, and that decision is kept in the audit trail. So the assessment adjusts to the real change in front of you, instead of depending only on a static form. That multidisciplinary review now becomes a formal risk register, linking each hazard to its causes, consequences, existing safeguards, extra controls, and the residual risk left after those controls are applied. Just as importantly, the record ties evidence directly to each hazard and decision, so you can see how risk was reduced, who accepted what remains, and that those calls were made by competent people. From there, the system works out whether the change needs a hazard, HAZOP, task risk assessment, machinery risk assessment, functional safety assessment, or another specialist study. So the review matches the risk instead of following one generic route. If the change carries higher risk, it can be escalated to enhanced review, with independent reviewers or more senior authorizers brought in before it moves forward. AI can flag indicators that a change may need tougher scrutiny, but the final classification still sits with the competent human decision makers. Every review point can become a tracked action, whether it came from an assessment criterion, a risk control decision, or something agreed in a meeting. Each one is recorded with a clear owner, action category, due date, evidence requirement, and live status, so nothing important is left as an informal note. Those actions then line up with the stage gates through category 0, A, B, and C, so the system knows what must be finished before the change can move on. If mandatory work is still open, progression stops at the gate until the required actions and evidence are complete. Once all Category 0 actions are closed and the remaining risk has been judged acceptable, the change is ready to be submitted for Part 1 approval. That approval gives authority to finish the design and move into procurement, fabrication, testing, and installation. It still does not permit commissioning or putting the change into live operation. From there, the engineering package stays tied to the change record, including calculations, drawings, specifications, vendor data, inspection requirements, test plans, and commissioning requirements, so every technical detail remains traceable to the eMoC. That way, the platform links the approved decision directly to the design basis and to the evidence needed before work can continue, so design intent, proof, and permission all stay connected. As the change moves into delivery, fabrication, construction, installation, software updates, procedural changes, and related work are all tracked against the approved scope, so the job stays aligned with what was actually authorized. That gives managers one place to check progress and the proof behind it, including inspections, photographs, test certificates, and any actions that still need to be closed. Once work is underway, the approved change cannot quietly grow in the background. If the scope is shifting, that shift has to be recognized and controlled. When the design, operating basis, cost, schedule, or risk changes in a material way, the eMoC record is updated and the assessment team is alerted so the impact can be reviewed properly. And if that change is significant enough, the record can move back to Part 1, so the revised proposal is reviewed and approved again before the work carries on. Before startup, the team reviews Category A actions and all readiness evidence, including checks, certificates, software verification, procedures, training, isolations, maintenance arrangements, and the commissioning plan. AI can highlight gaps or missing proof, but it does not decide that the change is ready. That judgment stays with the authorized person who reviews the evidence and makes the call. When that review is complete, Part 2 gives explicit authority to begin commissioning. In other words, this is the point where permission becomes formal. Commissioning is where the organization proves the change is safe to operate, functions as designed, and can actually deliver the performance it was approved to achieve. So mechanical completion, testing, energization, process introduction, trip proving, software testing, and performance trials can all be captured in one controlled record, with the evidence and status of each step kept together. AI then cross-checks the commissioning evidence against what the change promised earlier, including training completion, revised procedures, relief calculations, proof testing, and performance verification, so the team can see whether the approved commitments were actually delivered. If commissioning reveals a snag or a new action, it is recorded straight away, and if a significant new hazard appears, commissioning stops until the risk is reassessed and the change is made safe to continue. Once commissioning has been signed off, the change moves into operations only when the Category B actions are finished and any remaining Category C work is still under control, with clear limits, owners, and follow-up in place. At that point, the record shows exactly what was accepted, what was handed over, and who in the operating organization took responsibility for it from there. Even after handover, the work is not finished. Management of change stays live until the organization has followed through on what still needs to be checked, confirmed, or completed in operation. That is why Category C actions stay visible until they are closed, and why the original success criteria are checked against real results in safety, reliability, production, environmental performance, or financial value. To finish the mock properly, every remaining action is either closed or transferred into an approved control process. The lessons learned are captured, and the record is submitted for final closeout. Once that happens, the completed record is locked and retained as the full, traceable history of the change, from the first request through risk review, approvals, evidence, handover, and final acceptance. Some changes need a different route. Temporary changes carry a clear expiry or review date, and emergency changes can move through an accelerated path first, then go back for retrospective assessment so the record still catches up with the risk and the decision. The same approach can be tailored for specialist cases, including software and organizational change, with their own criteria, approvals, and evidence requirements, while still keeping one fully traceable history of what changed, who approved it, and why. Leaders get a live view of the change portfolio, so they can see open eMoCs, aging records, overdue actions, temporary changes nearing expiry, high-risk items, commissioning readiness, and the bottlenecks slowing progress right now. Automated reminders and escalation keep that visibility useful, because the right people are prompted early, and issues can be chased before due dates slip into missed deadlines. The audit trail follows the whole life of the change, capturing submissions, edits, AI suggestions, human decisions, comments, attachments, returns, approvals, action closing, every stage move along the way. So when an authorized person reviews the record, they can see exactly what changed, why it changed, who assessed it, what evidence supported the decision, and who gave the approval. When eMoC is fully completed, it doesn't disappear into archive. It becomes searchable organizational knowledge, so the next change can start with what the business already learned. That means similar records can bring forward lessons from pump upgrades, relief capacity, vibration problems, or missed training, while the organization still controls who can view, use, and formally accept that information. AI can support the whole mock journey, from risk screening and clearer change descriptions through first-pass risk assessment, criteria suggestions, action drafting, evidence checks, commissioning cross-checks, and even pulling forward lessons from similar past changes. But every AI output stays advisory, editable, and fully traceable, so competent people still review it, change it, accept it, or reject it, and they keep the authority and accountability for the final decision. Motive doesn't just turn the mock form into a screen. It digitizes the engineering governance behind it, so the process, decisions, evidence, and accountability all work as one controlled system. That means intelligent screening, AI-assisted early risk assessment, configurable multidisciplinary review, stage gate approvals, action control, commissioning, audit history, and lessons learned all stay connected in one place. The result is a process that's easier for people to follow, harder to bypass, and far more useful when you need safe, reliable operations instead of a form that's simply been filled in. Engineering change will always create both opportunity and risk. What matters is having a clear way to assess it, control it, and prove the right decisions were made. With Motive, that happens in one traceable process, with accountable AI support and human judgment where it counts most. Innovative processes help us keep costs to a minimum, and we offer a subscription cost that won't be beaten. Contact us to see how we can transform your management of change, simplify your risk assessments, and bring your organization into the age of digitalization and AI.